Alright guys, hello and welcome to another video. Alright, so today in the background I'm bringing you some Shaolin gameplay. Sorry that does not have any audio. Unfortunately, I kind of messed up the recording there, but that is okay because we do not need to hear the beautiful sounds of Shaolin. We are going to be talking about the upcoming bash changes that will be implemented into the game October 26th, 2023. So ideally this video comes out the day before, and I sort of want it to serve as a sort of reference point as to where the game is now and a look at what characters are going to be winning big from this patch, what characters are maybe not losing but are definitely changing in a significant way, and I guess some other characters that are definitely losing, right, in this patch. And so just to make sure everybody's on the same page about what we're going over, if you were unaware, on the Warrior's Den, they went over how all 4 dodge bashes that are not chargeable will be a 433 ms unblockable indicator that can be input 300 to 500 ms into the dodge, with notable exceptions being Meijie and Orochi and Tiandi, whose changes mean something, although they won't necessarily affect the properties that I'm going to discuss later. They sort of like maintain them is their purpose. That'll make sense in a second. But first, in order to talk about what that change is going to do to the game, we need to talk about where the game is now. And conveniently for us, all the bashes in this game sort of fit into, or rather 4 dodge neutral bashes, right, in the game sort of fit into these 2 neat categories, or not neat, but two categories, 2 distinct categories with different properties, right? And those 2 are going to be the Legion Kick and something that I'm calling the Headbutt. And so just to go over the first type we have is going to be the Legion Kick. And in order to help us go over that and establish a couple properties, we've got Centurion. Alright, so say hello, Centurion. Yes, you're beautiful. Alright, so what I want us to pay attention to in this clip and in the following one is that after you do a chain finisher with your character, which for those of you who don't know, you will have 700 ms of frame advantage, it does not give you enough time to go back into another Legion Kick variant, right? Just to reiterate that again, we've got Shaolin here, which again, after he does a heavy finisher, you'll see he cannot kick again. He'll get lighted out of it. The reason this is important is there's a few exceptions to this rule, or rather some people with some unique properties, right? So, right, that's for your standard Legion Kicks, you hit a heavy finisher, but what about people with a dodge cancel to their finishers? So we've got Tiandi here. And so what we want to see here is, although Tiandi has a Legion Kick and he can chain continuously into the dodge, he does not have enough frame advantage from his attack finisher to keep doing the bash over and over again, right? He'll get lighted out by Larry here, our ever faithful assistant. And I know it's a big bummer, buddy. The other person who sort of has the ability to constantly do this dodge chain is going to be Zanhu. And you'll see here that he gets slighted out when he tries to do his multiple bash chain, right? Which is as we expect for all the Legion Kicks. You can't just keep kicking people, even if you have the specialty. But what he has is the ability to chain out of his sort of bash follow-up, right? Because it's technically an opener. So he can keep doing this over and over again, and if he does a heavy finisher, he does have enough frame advantage to keep going, which is something that is also shared here by our friend Orochi. So you'll see he kicks, and then he can chain, and then that's his heavy finisher, so it gives him enough frame advantage to just keep kicking. Boom, bam, can't stop him, can't hit him out. But what Orochi has that's even unique amongst characters with a dodge recovery cancel is he can just keep on kicking you. Right, so this is something that Tiandi and Zanhu, although they have the ability to dodge cancel their finishers. They cannot just keep kicking you in the face, which Orochi can. So the things we want to take away from this is that there's a lot of characters in the game with a standard Legion kick. And although there's a few exceptions, most of them follow this sort of rule of you hit your bash, you get your follow-up, and you can usually chain out of this, and then after that chain lands, especially if you do a light finisher, but even if you do a heavy finisher, you do not have enough frame advantage to go right back into the kick. The opponent can steal that frame advantage back from you, right? And so that's kind of cool. And if you recall, I mentioned that there's a second kind of bash, right? So just to go over Legion kicks one last time, just to make sure we got all our ducks in a row, it's going to be any attack or any forward dodge bash that has a dodge window input from 300 to 500 ms into the forward dodge with a 500 ms unblockable indicator. But there is another type that's called, or rather that I'm going to call the headbutt, which again has a 500 ms indicator, but the input window from which you can put this attack into a dodge is from 100 ms to 500 ms. And that earlier ability to sort of chain into this attack actually gives you some special properties over the Legion kick. So we've got Warlord here to show us what I mean. And the thing that's unique about the headbutt type is that you do have enough frame advantage after a heavy finisher to go back into the attack. And that's because, although they have the same indicator length, right, of 500 ms, you can actually input the attack at 100 ms into your dodge, thus making the attack a 600 ms sort of like as a total, right? Which of course is within your 700 ms of frame advantage. So if you land a heavy finisher, you can keep going into this. And just to reiterate, we're going to have Black Prior show that again. And I don't know if you noticed, but in the Warlord clip, I also had him just trying to bash over and over again. And I think I'm going to have Black Prior do the same thing. And he can't, even though he has this faster bash, it doesn't mean that he can keep going like this, because after a light finisher, you of course don't have frame advantage, and that's the same with the headbutt as it is with the Legion kick. I know, big shame, buddy. So what these sort of bashes do differently apart from each other is, well, obviously the headbutt sort of exists right now, and it's just kind of better than the Legion kick. It's got the same indicator length, so technically the same level of reactability to the indicator anyhow, but because you can input it so much earlier into your dodge, it functions as a much better interrupt tool, and again, you can use it to maintain frame advantage. Although there is one exception to that I want to go over, and we'll bring out our buddy Conqueror here to show us that. And that although Conqueror does have the headbutt type and inputs his bash 100 ms into the dodge, and again you'll see you can't keep dodging. What Conqueror has that's unique is an infinite heavy finisher, or not, infinite heavy chain, sorry. And what that means is you never do a heavy finisher, so therefore you never have the heavy finisher frame advantage. So you actually can light Conqueror out of any sort of thing. If he goes back to neutral and then tries to bash you, you'll hit him. I know, terrible. And so what these changes are going to kind of be doing to the cast is, if you want to think about all the people that have Legion kicks, which I'll just go over a list right quick. We have Centurion, Griffin, Gladiator, Lawbringer, Yorm, Orochi, Shinobi, Kyoshin, Shigoki, Tiandi, Zanhu, Jangjun, Shaolin, and finally Ocelotl. And so what all these characters are going to be getting is just a straight up better move. They had a move before, and now it's faster. Now it's going to hit more, and it's supposedly unreactable at all levels of play, right? That's what they're going for with this. And so because this new bash that's coming, if you look at the numbers, is essentially just a buffed Legion kick we can sort of look at all the people with Legion kicks and know that they're going to get better, but especially certain characters within that are going to have some really big wins, right? I'm thinking Orochi and Zanhu in particular, with their ability to sort of continuously go through these chains that maintain frame advantage and then keep going into this unreactable 50-50 essentially. They're going to be probably winning a lot. And then some, maybe the characters that don't have that are probably going to win a little less, but they're still going to win, right? And then we have the characters with the headbutts, who it's hard to say if it's going to be a straight win for them, because obviously, because they're getting a Legion kick now, they're going to lose that ability to maintain frame advantage with a bash after landing a heavy finisher, but they technically gain a move that's less reactable, although they will also be losing that ability to interrupt that I mentioned before. All with the exception of Medjai, right? Medjai is the only person who's keeping this ability to input this new 433 ms dodge or bash indicator at 100 ms into his dodge, right? We have some Medjai privilege now in the game. So definitely for Medjai, that's going to be a big win. It's hard to say if for the rest of the headbutters this is going to be a win or a loss, as I stated, but I guess we'll just have to see after the patch comes out. And then, so who are the losers of this patch, right? Well, it's basically anybody that doesn't have this kind of attack, right? Which most of the cast does, but I'm thinking specifically of Peacekeeper and Nobushi, which already not really present at high levels, or at the top, right? And definitely very difficult to play at high levels because they don't have sort of access to some powerful unreactable offense, and definitely PK, she lacks in like range. And now there's this new tool coming to the game that all these characters are going to have, and they're not going to have it, right? And so that's just going to be a big lose for those characters, and if you main them, sorry, it's going to be a tough day for you. Also Highlander, also I mean, like he needed another reason to lose. Hopefully his rework comes soon, because that was a ton of fun. But on the topic of reactability and sort of my opinions on this change, what are those, right? Do I think this change is good? Do I think it's bad? Do I think it's going to change much about, say, who's at what tier of play, right? And I'm thinking it's probably not a great change, and it's probably not going to change who's at the top, and if it does, it'll only be slight shifts, right? And the reason why is because these people who are at the top are not just at the top because they can react to bashes, right? And the truth is that a lot of these bashes in the game already aren't reactable at the highest level of play, because there are other options you can do out of your forward dodge bash, right? So just a character that I know in depth, right, is going to be Shaolin, right? You have your forward dodge heavy, and you have your forward dodge bash, and that heavy is feightable, right, which makes it very nice, right, for this sort of ability to have unreactable offense from neutral out of your forward dodge, right? And so my issue with this is, why are we giving all of the characters with a Legion kick this new unreactable fun bash instead of just giving them more tools, or maybe improving the tools that they already have, right? So that they have this unreactable offense, right, that does exist at the top level of play, but it also maintains that sort of a depth to the gameplay, right, that having these multiple options and having to think about them has now, right? Because now as Shaolin, there's almost no reason to throw the forward dodge heavy. Just dodge forward, right? It doesn't cost any stamina, and it has all the pressure that it had before when you had to do something that did require stamina, right? And that's another thing is about these characters like, BP and all of them, right? But especially BP's. He's just going to be dodging forward at you, and it's going to be this incredible amount of pressure. You're going to have to make a choice, and it's not costing him any stamina to sort of force this reaction from you, right? And I think that might prove to be problematic, especially with a character like BP, because he's one of the few characters left in this game that have stamina pause on their bash. And I'm definitely thinking that if this change goes live, they really need to get rid of that. That needs to go. I mean, it needed to go anyway, but now it definitely needs to go. BP's ability to keep you at low stamina if you are foolish enough to get yourself there, which I am, is really it's really not great, not healthy for the game, and it's just going to be less so now, right? Now that you have this move, and so I just wonder if I know it would be a whole lot more work for the devs to add all these new moves in order to sort of decrease the reactability of these forward dodge bashes. And so for them, it seems like a skeleton key. Just kind of make the bashes faster, and that achieves what you want, right? But I am sort of wondering if this is going to dumb down the gameplay too much and just kind of make it not as like interactive as it is right now. And another question on my mind is, who is this change for? Because at my level, certainly I wasn't asking for it, right? I like being able to react to bashes sometimes. And at the top level of play, I know that they like being able to react to bashes sometimes, right? And to actually have these sorts of options otherwise in the game that make the bashes less reactable and thus make the game more interactive, right? And there's more things to think about, right? And that's what you need at the top level of play, is more things to think about, more things to make things hard to deal with, because that's what makes a character strong, right? That's what makes a move strong. Is you have to think about more things, so you can't just pick one option and deal with all of it, right? And so if they didn't really want it, and I don't really want it, and people who are, say, at the lower level of the skill tier, who these bashes were already unreactable for, so this doesn't really change much for them, they don't really care. Who is this person that sits in the middle that wants this, right? That wants this ability to just be able to throw 50-50s out whenever they want, and that's just the game now, right? Who was going, coming home from school and hopping on BP and just, just constantly bashing and constantly going into neutral, right? After he lands his bash, he just stays in neutral, right? He wants you to light him. You know who I'm talking about. And they just sort of, they catapult through the ranks of people who can't react to these bashes, right? And then they win too many times in a row, and then they got to go against a super reaction player, and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore, right? Is that who this is for? They just, all of a sudden, their funny moves stopped working for them at a certain level of play, and then they go hop off the game and head to the forums and just shitpost all over the place about how the game is, it's all these turtles and whatnot, now you can't press buttons. And I just, why are we making this game to their level? But that's just my 2 cents. You may have a different opinion, and if you do, let me know what it is in the comments. Try to keep it civil. If you're new here, leave a like, subscribe for more. I'm going to be posting, obviously, about the Shaolin skin that's going to be coming out, and I want to eventually put out a full guide on Shaolin to help all you newcomers to the character that might be really interested in the skin and you're thinking about learning the character. Might be a guide coming pretty soon, so subscribe, stick around for that. Could be cool. Anyways, I want to thank you all for watching, and cheers.